Good evening and welcome back to the shop here in Canterbury, New Hampshire. Tonight we're going to talk about nice legs, beautiful legs in terms of furniture, that is. And I want to talk about some of the ideas that have steered various designs and actually make a couple. So we're going to do that, and hopefully that'll stretch our design minds and get our craftsman juices flowing. All right, so before I get started on that, if you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing and ring the bell. When you ring the bell, it just guarantees you get the any new videos we post. So, all right, so we want to get into this topic of legs, and to do that, I'm going to bring out a little visual that I've used a few other times. Basically, this is a shaker style table. However, it's not been refined in a couple different ways. One of the noticeable or common designs in shaker furniture is the tapered leg. So normally a leg like this would not be square right to the floor, but it would actually have a graceful taper, and it would lighten it up and refine it as it reaches the floor. And then the top edge, instead of just being thick like a 3/4 inch top here, it might even be thinned up a little and refined as well to give it a lighter, better look. So this is about the most basic approach you could have to a table leg. It's just square, right? We could do a lot of things. It's a square leg. It will work just as well as a decorative leg, but there's not much style to it. So let me bring in its brother or sister, whatever you want to call it. Hopefully you can fit it on there. There we go. And now we have a different table. Or is it? It's actually not different at all in terms of height, width. The rails are exactly the same. The legs are exactly the same square. The top is the same thickness. Everything is the same in dimension, except we've added two refinements. And you can see them. We've added this tapered leg. So the inside edge of all of the legs is tapered down to like a 5/8 foot, going from 1 3/8 inches down to 5/8 here. So it gives it a much more lighter, cleaner, refined look, where also the top edge has been undercut beveled. Excuse me. So it gives the top a thinner appearance when it's on the floor. In fact, it only looks like it's 7/16 thick on the floor. And that feels good in combination with the lighter foot. So you have kind of this this balance of elements where you've got a lighter edge, a lighter foot, so it's overall a nice comprehensive design. And the various elements agree and nothing feels too out of whack. So interesting, huh? Just a simple little taper and it changes the game altogether. So you might say this leg is more beautiful than that leg. But why? Don't be mean. Actually, it is. I mean, it's nicer, it's refined. You spend more time making this leg, and it does have a better look. It looks lighter. It actually has a stronger appearing stance because of the slight splay to the leg. Even though it's lighter, it's just a nicer looking table. So I'm going to set these aside for a minute. Now I'm going to throw you a curve. We're going to talk about curved legs. And if you saw my little introduction to this evening, there was a writer and a painter, an artist in the early mid-1700s named William Hogarth. And he was English, and he wrote a book. It was about beauty and art. And one of the subtopics inside the book that it's probably best known for is his discussion of the line of beauty. He kind of obsessed over this, the line of beauty. And so it wasn't a straight line. It wasn't a tapered line. it was an S-curved shape like that. The Analysis of Beauty was the book. In the book, he has like these gentle curves he starts with, and then they start to get stronger and stronger. And so he basically drew almost like it was a Queen Anne foot here. So, where you'd have the disc foot down the bottom. So he showed different strengths of the curves on various legs. And anyway, I remember reading about this when I was apprenticing with Pug and thinking how much it influenced a lot of that 18th century design. Like a lot of the cabriole legs and was such a large part of the Queen Anne and Chippendale period. And I'm not sure actually if he wrote that before the cabriole leg started on the Queen Anne or after, but he was influential with this idea, and he had a lot of other ideas of what, in his analysis of beauty, what constituted true beauty in architecture and art in general. Let me just show you a couple Queen Anne legs if you're not sure what I'm talking about. Here's a classic Queen Anne leg from a highboy they have. So you see that S curve or Sima curve where you have that reversing curve, and this would qualify for Hogarth's line of beauty. And then we have a longer one. This is a taller version of the cabriole leg in this is like a hall or sofa table. And here's some I was just messing around with. I just had this funky little short leg, and this was a square block, and I cut in that curve. Now, so that's a little different cut. It's coming inside and then out. So if you think of it, there's really, if you're going to add this kind of Sima curve on a leg going to the floor, you can really only have it in two directions. So if this were the rail of the table here, let's say here, and then I'll put this one out this way. And just for illustration, I'm going to show you on a leg about this size, okay? So you have this version here where it's going to come in and then go out. So let's say we came down like this. Boy, I hope I can stay steady here. And then come on out and drop down the edge. And then on the inside, it's going to do the same, except it's going to come full here and then sweep out and land out here. Okay, so you end up with that outward curve. So it's a longer, thinner leg, so obviously the line of beauty is longer and thinner. So for the other legs, the other way you start is rather than coming in, we're going to go out. And this is more typical of the cabriole, the standard cabriole or Queen Anne leg. So you would start maybe in here and come out to the knee. That's what we call it in furniture world. And then, excuse me, and then you're going to drop in. It's going to come in down kind of gracefully, not really a lot. The tendency when you start doing these lines of beauty or cabriole legs is you overdo it, because, I say that from experience, because you're thinking about the final curve you want to have. But you're only looking at it in two dimensions, so the curve is going to magnify as you look at it on the diagonal by like 1.4, okay? So this curve visually is going to strengthen when you see this from the diagonal. So then the inside on this leg would just come in sort of subtly like this and drop down and then start to work its way out to a nice graceful foot out here. All right, so you see the two versions. We've got a nice knee here and dropping in. And the other is the opposite. It gives you a different feeling. So this is on my mind lately because we're building that modern writing desk out of this style leg where it comes inward and then goes out. Let me show you it right here. Here's the version of the leg. So here's the rails right here. So actually, let me put it the same way I drew here. So the rails are coming off here. So you've got this slightly inside curve, and then it goes out and comes down to the floor. So see how subtle that is? But now I'm going to turn it. Look at the diagonal. See how it strengthens? And it's a stronger, more bold curve. So when you are drawing these kind of things, you want to underplay it a little bit, and you'll get a little stronger line of beauty on your diagonal. So to check it out, this is actually the writing desk we've got going. We're in the middle of this course. Actually, we've got 2 sessions left. But you can see the leg right here. And this leg, not only does it have that subtle curve to it, but the surfaces are all pillowed. So you add this other dimension to the beauty of that leg. Let me just draw one here. Let's play around with drawing this style leg. So we've got our little template here, right? This is going to be our material. We've got a 1/4 inch template, and that's going to go on here. And I'm not sure how, I think I'm going to come in about like this on the top. That's about the same. Comes in, and then let me just try to draw this by hand. Then I'm going to roll my finger, try to do this halfway decent. Okay, that's not bad. So I'm going to come down, and it curves and starts going outward, 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 and then it meets the bottom so it hits the flat. Here, I want to start, I've got a kind of a narrow rail plan for this. So I'm going to go here, and let's start at the foot. Don't want it too big. Let's say we go here, and again I'm going to start rolling my finger here. That's kind of shaky, isn't it? All right, so I need help. I can't get that curved line. So I'm going to use my little sticks and my pencil in my mouth method like this. And I'm just going to get that outside curve a little better so it drops in right nicely. Okay. That's not bad. A little thin. So I'm going to thicken it up here. And then I'll come in this way. I'm going to just bandsaw it, and I'll try to be smooth about the bandsawing too. So I'm not going to fuss too much, but that's the feeling we want for this inside curve, okay? So whatever material we use, like this is just 1 5/8 inches wide. To get a stronger curve, obviously you start with a larger square. But here we're using 1 5/8 inches. And I think the height, not that this is necessarily a table you want to try to make after, but why not, is 18. So it's going to be, with the top on this, it'd be a little higher than coffee table height. Or you could have it next to a chair. It'd be pretty decent for a low glass. All right, so let's go over to the bandsaw. We're going to cut this out, and then we'll finish up our pattern, and we'll saw out a leg. So once I have that, I just want to smooth that out really quickly here. I'm just going to use a spoke shave. That actually feels pretty smooth. I was on top of my bandsawing game there. Doesn't always happen. Then here's the inside. See, some people just talk about the line of beauty. Other people make stuff out of it, right? Maybe Bill Hogarth did make something. I don't know. There we go. So that's a pretty slender leg, pretty light. So I'm losing some up here in thickness so that I can get that outward push to the foot. It's similar to the way we did the drawing for the modern writing desk. So this is the drawing. This is the drawing that you get when you take the course. Here's the leg shape. So when you get this exact leg that I just showed you there. And down on this leg, it's 15/16 at the foot. And the square starts out at 1 7/8 inches. So up here, you're just 1.5 inches. And then it sweeps out gently and hits the foot. So same over here. So now that I would decide here, I'm not going to talk about the grain much here. I will in a second. I'm going to show you one other leg after this. So we're going to get this on here, and I'm going to draw it out. So when you're doing this three-dimensional leg, you're going to draw it out on two faces. So you end up with a three-dimensional leg. So I'm getting it flush on the inside here, and I'm flush on the outside down here. And then I'll draw my inside line. Okay. So this is the inside of the leg. My joinery would probably be in here. Okay, and then it would also be in here. And this is actually, let's see, once I get this drawn on, then I would actually cut my joinery while everything was still square. And then I would go bandsaw it out. But this one's just a demo, this first one. So I will just cut this. I mean, this is like when I'm trying to work out a shape and decide if it's something I like I did with the desk. It will, I won't worry about the joinery at this stage. All right, so there we go. So we're going to saw it out in this profile, and then we'll come back to the bench and we'll saw the second half. I'll show you why we have to do it in 2 stages. Because I sawed off my other lines, when I did this, I'm going to tape this piece back on so I can cut it from the other perspective. I'm just going to get it back flush on the bottom and tape it back. And this is how I do a Queen Anne leg as well, except the Queen Anne has that little added complexity with the turned foot at the bottom. For a leg like this, I turn the foot first into the block, and then it's sawn out, and then it's blended back into the turned section. However, here, we've got this nice contemporary leg, and no need for that. Okay, so I got that taped back on. Just put one over the middle. And it's a little pitched, so usually I like to put the little riser back underneath to give me a bit more stability. Just for support. Just put a couple pieces of tape on this one. And we're ready to go back to the bandsaw. Let's go. All right, so we take off all those pieces and we're left with the shape of our leg. So we went from this to this. So that will be a nice little light leg. Now I would clean up the surfaces with a spoke shave and tools, and there you have it. We would have a nice little subtle line of beauty. Now you notice what I was cutting is, you might be wondering, what kind of wood is that? It's cypress. I had this cypress left over from the Adirondack chair projects. So now I want to do this, I want to cut with more thoughtfulness about the grain, the actual grain flow, okay? I didn't even think about it on this one. I had kind of like if you look at the top, I've got kind of a flats on piece. The grain is running almost parallel with this surface and this surface. And then it's a quarter sawn on this side. So you end up with these wide bands here and more quarter sawn here, which is fine. I mean, I usually, if I'm forced with that, I would pair up on one side more quarter sawn grain. And then on this face, I would work hard to pair up a little wider grain. So when you're looking at it from that perspective, you have this kind of symmetry in the appearance of the grain. Here's a piece that's riff sawn, or the grain is diagonal, almost a perfect 45 to the surface. And when you have a piece like this, you really have a little more options, but you can use the strong grain character to read well on the surface of the leg. So I'm going to bring out a different leg. Let's say we drew that inside curve, but check this out. This was our inside curve here, which we just drew. Okay, there you go. And then this is an outside curve. It's the same leg, but we have the outside curvature coming down. So now we're going to make a leg with this style and see how we like that. But I also want to think about the curvature of this leg and the grain orientation. So if you look up on the end grain here, we've got the diagonal grain coming through. I actually already laid this out, and I'll show you why. I've got my mortises in here, right? So I'm going to I'll draw this right on so that then I'll tell you why I put it this way. It'll make sense easier when I draw it on there. So I'm going to just get it flush at the bottom, kick up the toe, and here we go. Here we go. Now on the inside we're going to flip. So we got a mirror, and this one I already cut the joinery, so we're all set on that. And I've actually never made either one of these, obviously, tables. This is just for demonstration, but who knows? It might look all right when we get done. And there we go. Okay. When I'm cutting into the piece like this, I want to think about what's going to happen on the face here. This is going to be one of the exposed faces. So as I saw at this angle, this very straight linear grain is going to bend one way or the other. It just does. When you saw curves into straight linear grain like this, the lines end up curving too. I want these lines to curve in compliance with the curve of the leg. So this is a double Hogarth line of beauty, okay? So what we're going to do is when we make this little cut, just think about it by looking at the end grain, okay? So as this cut comes deeper, the grain starts, if I started at the surface, let's say, and I just cut deeper, like coming this way, the grain is running back to the right, okay? So as I cut deeper into that surface, the grain, I expect it to run back to the right a little bit, like that, okay? It's kind of a weird concept, but you'll see, because I'm trying to show you in 2 dimensions. As I saw this deeper, the grain on the face, I'm going to be revealing grain pushing back, so it's going to be moving this back here. I'm going to be seeing the grain back here. Okay, so that moves back to the right from the front edge. So that's about how it's going to go. And then, as we saw down to the foot, as we sweep inward here, it's going to, as we sweep down here, it's going to start moving again back this way as we go deeper, back to the right. So I'm hoping that as I cut down in here, the grain is going to start tracing back this way. I'm exaggerating it. And then I'm going to sweep out. See, I'm going to sweep out back again to the foot. And then it's going to be rising. So the grain should be starting to come out this way. So do you see what's going to happen? We're sawing out our leg like that. And we want the grain to flow with it. So when you have a piece like this, of a strong grain like this is the only time I'm really thinking heavily about this. I want those lines to conform with the shape of the leg. Now, on the other side, because I've got it lined up to the diagonal on the corner, it's going to be the reverse on the other side, which I want. So see how it happens? Like, that's how deep I'm going to saw in, as I saw into this face from the side here. So as I go deeper, the lines are going from this point over to here. So I can think about that, and the lines are going to be going this way. And then they're going to reverse. As I cut down this way, they're going to start coming back this way. And then I'm going to saw out to the foot, and they're going to start coming back this way. So you see, they're going to flow the same way, and hopefully I'll end up with some symmetry and conforming lines on the face of this leg. All right? So let's saw this baby out from the inside and see what we get. Now we got to tape these pieces back on. Same as the last time. Of course, when you're making a table, you're doing this 4 times all together, so you get some efficiencies with moving back and forth. And cutting each step all together. That's good. And then I'll just pop this piece back under as a support. Here we go. Now let's clean it up a little, and then we'll have a good look at it. So, cleaning up stock like this, I put a little spacer block in my bench, and then I like using these bar clamps as, it's like an auxiliary vise. So, you can hold longer things quickly. And so, usually when we're making Queen Anne legs and things, you can just pop it right in there. You're in business. So I'll just stick with the spoke shave here. Sometimes I'll use a flat square down, a flat block plane down here, but trying to reverse where the grain is reversing. Then I would use a file up in there, but I'm not going to get into that right at the moment. Like a fine rasp and then a file. Feels good. I gotta pull. Can you step a little to the left?
Can you remind us of the blade on the bandsaw, Tom?
Yes, it's 3/8, 6 teeth per inch. If I was doing a lot of ripping, like heavier stock, I like having a 1/2 inch, 3 teeth per inch on that one. But I do have a larger bandsaw that I do a lot of the heavier stuff. And I just keep a 3/4 inch, 3 teeth per inch, 2 or 3, yeah, on that one. Okay, so I'm using the spoke shave to clean off the bandsaw marks. And this is how all these legs are cleaned up quickly. Just like that. Nice flowing curve. Come back at the top. There it is. Don't over tighten it. I've never had a leg break in there, but it is a tremendous amount of, it can be a tremendous amount of force with this type of I-beam clamp. That's nice. Cleans up really quickly like this. We really get into this in the course, like, and then pillowing and all of that, but I'm not going to do that here. It's just not enough time for that. But so you have the flat leg, but check it out. Let's see how the grain is flowing. So you can see how the grain is bending a little at the top. It was pretty much dead straight. And then it starts to go back in here, and then it bends out toward the foot. Let's look at this profile. Oh, it's even better here. Hogarth would be excited. So we have it coming back here, and then it's sweeping down inward. And then look at how that sweeps right back out. That's just because we thought about the grain before we sought it out. So if someone looked at this, they say, how did you ever get that grain to match the curvature of the leg? Well, we got kind of lucky on that one, but that's a nice feature when you have strong grain material like that. You can think about that. It makes a nice little added sophistication to the final result. So I want to show you one quick thing on a rail, like just so we can put this table together. But here's that idea again on a rail where we have, look at the grain here. This will probably be easier to understand. So we have the grain sweeping in again at a diagonal. So when I cut a curve into this, I have to choose the appropriate side, because if I want the face of this piece, I may want the arches or the curve lines to go this way, or I may prefer them to go under, or what I call a swag. So I do want the swag on this. So I'm going to try to plan for that. And you see, this is the joinery, and this is the upright position. Because if you think about it, let's say we're going to cut back, let's say if it ends up being that thick at the end. So as I'm going to start almost from nothing in the middle, and we're going to cut a curve into this piece, right in like that. So let me just put it on the top, and let's take a look at it. Here, I got a little curve already to go. I'll draw it right on there. And now, so we're going to be bandsawing vertically in that direction. Yeah, and that's right about where it comes out. So as I start here, and I'm going to be sawing deeper in, look at what's happening. The lines are going to be going upward toward the top, okay? As I go deeper. So I start here, like let's say this is the line in the middle. And then as I saw deeper, 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 it's actually going to be going upward. So I expect these lines, as I saw in a curve, to actually curve upward as I'm cutting deeper. Okay, I'm going to be seeing this line here. So if you've never thought about that, and I think you'll get it once because you're thinking about it in two dimensions actually. You know, you're thinking about the position you're going to saw it on the top, but then what's going to show on the face. So on this side, it's the reverse. As I go deeper, it's going to be climbing up that way. So we expect it to be nice little swag right there, okay? So we got our joinery all ready to go to get the swag. So let's go ahead and saw this out. I'm going to clean up that surface. And I'll do that with the block plane. Just holding the nose down. Just so we can really see that grain and clean off those bandsaw marks. I'm rolling it. I don't want to flatten it. By rolling it, I create a nice arc. Beautiful. Flip it around.
Wow, it's so pretty.
It is pretty. All right. So there's our swag. Remember, we went from straight grain like that. Just because we sawed an arc, now we created a swag. Our joinery is at the top. Now we have one more thing here. Because of that strong grain, I actually want to cut a sweeping arc on the bottom. So I'm going to take one of the pieces I already did this with. I've got a similar cousin to it. I'm just going to use this as the pattern. So, is that right? Yeah. So I'm making the line on the inside, and I'm all teetery here. So I'm going to bring back my cutoff, and that's going to be a beautiful seat to be flat. Let's go cut this. All right, I just cleaned the bottom of this. Call this our swag table.
That's swag.
We got some swag going here. But don't you like, so we're letting the grain actually guide us a little. Look how that nicely cuts and smiles with the grain. Let's put it together. I've got a few other parts already made. This is the leg we just made, okay? So let me put a check mark on that one so I can show you. And here's the apron we just sawed out. I just need the 10 ends here. I've not seen this together as a table, so I'm curious what it's going to look like, you know.
You have more than 2 legs, I hope.
Yes, I do.
Or 2 or 4 legs that are the same curve.
Yeah.
He's always ready.
I'm always ready.
Always ready.
Check that out.
Oh, wow.
These cute little lines of beauty.
It's like a piano bench.
Yeah. All right, I'm not done. I'm going to get the other side. I should think about the orientation, though. See, we want a swag. It's crazy, huh, how this worked out. However, I did get one that was more plain sawn. Like this, see this? See the grain lines are parallel? They're not diagonal. So what do you think is going to be on that face?
Wait, don't show it yet. Let me see the end better.
So we're going to be parallel, roughly parallel, and I had to saw the curve. I didn't have another angular piece, so this one's going to be different. All the others have the swag going.
Okay,
This will be the back of the table. Here it is.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so you're getting kind of like topographical lines. It had a very slight angle, so we got a little bit of a swag at the bottom, so that's how I actually positioned it when I was cutting it. It had a slight angle outward. So we're going to go with that. And
Some might like that for the front.
yes, some might. Let's go in that side. And then let's take this one. And then we can flip
Just
this.
whip that thing together this today.
Just whipped it right together.
Crazy.
Actually, I had some of the part. I had to saw everything out. I had the squares. I actually did a demonstration probably 2 or 3 years ago at Fine Woodworking Live on what I call grain graphics. And so I had sawn one of these pieces in the curve because we were the whole idea was to talk about the graphical nature of wood grain and to think about it and plan and use it to your advantage. So let's put this on the floor. And I would be pillowing these legs, and you could even pillow that a little bit. So this is going to be stronger. That offset's not going to be that strong, but I'll bring that in. I do wonder if I should have brought it out a little bit because of how close I was at the top. I didn't, and I was thinking maybe I could have angled the rail a little bit, but I'm getting into nuances. But this is how.
You never do that.
So then we got a little square top. I'm going to throw a square top on it. Let's put on one of these shakery tops and let's see what we get. I don't know if a square top. We could do a little slightly oval shape in there. Yeah, to make it a little more contemporary. Mm. It's pretty low, but it'd be a sweet little side table to hold your.
Put one of your round things on there.
I don't think they're not big enough. But let's check it out. Maybe it will work. A little small, but you kind of get the idea. If we overhang it, yeah, it might be better with a round top. But then you lose the apron. And I want to see that swag nature of that thing. All right, so
That's so pretty.
let me put that up on the bench. Just want to read you this. In the book, the 1753 book, Analysis of Beauty, Hogarth wrote about the line of beauty, this theory, and he said, according to this theory, S-shaped curved lines signify liveliness and activity and excite the attention of the viewer, as contrasted with straight lines, parallel lines, or right-angled intersecting lines, which signify stasis, death, or inanimate objects. You got pretty into it, huh?
Sure did. That's intense.
And then in another one it said, the S-shaped serpentine curved line that excited the attention of the viewer and evoked liveliness and movement. So, hope that inspired
I feel
you
lively when
with
I
some
look at it.
liveliness.
Absolutely.
You just want to get moving, right? And design something like this. So once again, if you like this content, please consider subscribing, ring the bell, thumbs up, all that. We do appreciate it. And we really appreciate you being here and hanging out with us tonight in the shop and discussing the line of beauty. Hope you enjoyed that. I sure did. I look forward to seeing you next time right back here on Shop Night Live. Good night, everybody.